The meeting will come to order. The time is now 5:34 p.m. on Wednesday, November 2nd, 2022. This is a special meeting of the District of Columbia Commission on the Arts and Humanities. The purposes of this meeting are: 1, consideration of the agency's equity statement, and 2, consideration of a letter of support for the capital repairs and employment for art talent to improve visibility everywhere, CREATIVE Act. No other business will be considered. Notice of the meeting was posted on the Commission's website, dcarts.dc.gov, and on the DC Office of Open Government's Central Meetings calendar. My name is Reggie Van Lee, Chairperson of the Commission. I'm an African-American man in a blue suit with a white shirt and a blue pattern tie. I will now call the roll. When you hear your name, please answer present. Stacy. Cora.
Here.
Maggie.
Present.
Juanice.
Here.
Natalie.
I'm here.
Ember.
Present.
Mariah. Carla.
Present.
Hector. Gretchen.
Present.
And myself. A quorum is present. This is a meeting of a public body held in open session in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. The meeting is being conducted remotely using the Cisco Webex virtual meeting platform and is being live streamed to the Commission's YouTube channel. An electronic recording of the meeting will be available for viewing online following the conclusion of the meeting. I'm sorry, I'm covering the camera. I will now read the land acknowledgement, which perhaps is even more resonant given that November is Native American Heritage Month. Every community owes its existence and vitality to generations from around the world who contributed their hopes, dreams, and energy to making the history that led to this moment. Some were brought here against their will, some were drawn to leave their distant homes in hope of a better life, and some have lived on this land for more generations than can be counted. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connection across all barriers of heritage and difference. We begin this effort to acknowledge what has been buried by honoring the truth. We stand on the ancestral lands of the CAH and Piscataway people. We pay respect to the elders past and present. Please take a moment to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us together here today. And please join us in uncovering such truths at any and all public events and to use such truths to guide the legacy of the Arts Commission. So we will go to the topics on the agenda. First, starting with the consideration of the agency's equity statement. And Juanice, did you want, and well, first, Patrick, could you put the statement up on the screen? I think it's important that we really have read it. So Juanice, did you want to read it? Did you want me to read it? I know it's a little long, but I think it's important enough to actually call the words and have people be okay with it. Juanice?
You can read it, it's fine. If you want me to give a little background on it, I can do that.
Yeah, why don't you start with the background?
Okay. Hi, everyone. So we started this equity statement last year, pretty much after the 44 recommendations was approved by the commission. And so the purpose of this equity statement is to better understand what framework and what mindset we were approaching this work from. And so it talks a little bit about the history of the commission, acknowledging that there are faults that we have been adhering to and wanting to reconcile that through the 44 recommendations. And so this is just a statement. And so it is up to the IDEA committee in collaboration with other committees to make sure that the 44 recommendations becomes implemented and executed throughout all of the parts of the commission. And so this is what we are presenting to you all. I hope you had a chance to read it, but it was just kind of a statement that gives you that lens of how the IDEA committee is approaching this work, as well as how we are shaping and framing the 44 recommendations.
Good. And Juanice, maybe you can say a little bit about where this will go, the fact that we would like an excerpt from this to be part of each of our meetings. So just as I read the land acknowledgement, statement, we would have an equity statement, not this long one, but a version of it. And that we'll put it on our website, and we'll find all ways to publicize this so that people understand how we're thinking about things.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And we also want people to hold us accountable to this. And so we're working to make a communications kind of campaign or some type of campaign where we can highlight this and give people updates of the 44 recommendations over time.
And so I will stop and ask if we've read it. So I'm going to go, and not to embarrass anybody, but person by person, if you've read it and you're okay with it, then perhaps I don't need to read it. Maybe I should read it anyway. But Cora, have you read it and are okay with it?
Yeah, I read it and I am good with it.
Maggie?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yes, Reggie, I'm good with it. Thank you. Good work, everyone.
Cornelius, I assume you're okay with it. Natalie? Natalie?
Yes, I am okay with it. Thank you.
Good. Kimber?
I would love for it to be read out loud.
Okay, I'll still read it. But you don't have any issues.
I do not.
Carla?
I have read it and I'm fine with it.
Gretchen?
I have read it and I'm fine with it.
Good. And I'm as well. But I am going to read it just so that we know that on record we went through it. Starting with the executive summary. For the past 50 years, the DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities, CAH, mission has been to develop, initiate, and evaluate programs and matters relating to the arts and humanities, and to encourage programs and the development of programs that promote progress in the arts and humanities. However, the world has changed over the past 50 years, and systemic issues of the Commission have been illuminated during the COVID-19 pandemic in early 2020. As a call to action, Commissioner Cora Masters-Berry, she/her, wrote an in-depth letter to the Commission, urging us to reimagine the Commission so that we can reconcile and support the communities and organizations that have been left out of our funding models, communication strategies, and activities, and have often been left to fend for themselves. This letter brought the Commission together to form the ad hoc task force on equity, inclusion, and belonging, led by now Commissioner Chair Reginald Van Lee. After 6 months of interrogating, dismantling, analyzing, and reimagining the Commission, the task force came together to recommend over 40 recommendations for the Commission to implement over the next 1 to 2 years. The statement below describes the Commission's identity, who we have been, who we are now, and where we're going. Acknowledges the harms that may have been created, whether intentionally or unintentionally, recognizes the root of the systemic issues of being a government agency within a larger bureaucratic structure, and create solutions that we can hold ourselves accountable to, better support, include, and build transformational relationships with historically excluded communities, not only into our funding, but into the DNA of the Commission. Our foundation. The DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities is striving to be an anti-racist, diverse, equitable, inclusive, and accessible organization, and is currently shifting our mindsets from blame, shame, guilt, and grievance to causes, effects, systems, and solutions. As a government agency, we recognize that we're working within the bigger system, which is ingrained into the DNA of this country, and we're working hard to dismantle any inequities that have caused harm to members of our community. Due to the white supremacy, heteronormative, patriarchal systems that are embedded in this country, Jim Crow policies have created intentional racial disparities in our health, finance, employment, housing, justice, and education systems. Specifically, redlining and boundary creation, policies place Black, Indigenous, Latinx, immigrant, and Asian communities, BIPOC, and low-income communities into specific neighborhoods, causing the denial of opportunity for success in generational and institutional wealth. The implications of these policies directly align with what is going on in the arts and culture and grant-making sectors to this day. For the Commission, these policies have inherently affected our processes and how we have historically distributed funding. We come to the arts and culture community of Washington, D.C. to humbly acknowledge this harm and to promise that we're aiming to be better and do better. Although there is nothing that can immediately fix the situation, we will be continuously working towards regaining trust and collaborating with the communities in which we serve, especially our BIPOC communities. With this statement, we aim to not only write about our position, but to begin a culture of transparency about the future direction and actions of the Commission. How do we define equity? Equity is giving everyone what they need to be successful, typo there. Equity is operating from the understanding that individuals arrive at a given situation from very different starting points. These starting points are determined by certain social hierarchies, often involving race, class, gender, age, sexual identity, etc. An equitable framework centers awareness of these hierarchies and creates systems that are actively anti-racist, anti-classist, anti-ableist, anti-sexist, and anti-homophobic. We know that equity and equality are not the same. Equality is the outcome and what we strive to achieve one day. Meanwhile, equity is the strategy. Equity does not mean all. Equity means investing financially, in kind, and or with resources, and supporting communities that we know have had less access to arts funding, which have historically been BIPOC, LGBTQIA+ communities, low-income communities, and disabled communities. The DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities believes in using equitable strategies to strengthen the arts and culture sector, which is why we are invested in this work. What do we have done? In 2020, the Commission assembled an equity task force for a 6-month intensive period. The task force was an inclusive group of staff, commissioners, and community members whose work is aligned around developing recommendations that address the objectives of the Charter. During the 6-month period, the members of the Commission surveyed the arts and culture sector around the district to not only learn how we can support the field, but also to determine how we can become more reflective and responsive in our grant-making practices. The survey, which was distributed in October 2020, had over 890 responses. As a way of digging deeper into the work, the task force facilitated focus groups to collect community input and grantees who might not have had the opportunity to have their opinions expressed in the initial survey. The survey and focus groups illuminated the following themes for us. First, building practices, behaviors, and culture of fair and equitable processes. Second, creating robust, varied, and fully accessible resources. Third, addressing and supporting the needs of the broader community. Fourth, becoming bold in our leadership. Fifth, improving and optimizing the way we do business. And sixth, resolving perceived barriers to access. The Commission believes that systems and structures that are rooted in white supremacy, heteronormative, patriarchal systems must be dismantled, and that innovative, collective structures need to be created in its place globally, within the arts and culture field and within our own institutions. In order to do this, the Commission had to be reflective about who we are and where we want to go as an institution. In November 2020, the Equity Task Force brought forth a list of 44 recommendations, which were accepted by the full Commission in January 2021. These recommendations aim to support and provide equitable resources and opportunities for all marginalized social identities. The most integral of these recommendations was the creation of an IDEA, Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, Access Committee. As of October 1, 2022, the new IDEA committee members are Quanise Floyd, Committee Chair, she, her, Cora Masters-Berry, she, her, Maggie Fitzpatrick, she, her, Reggie Van Lee, ex officio, he, him. What's next? The IDEA Committee is tasked with operationalizing the Equity Task Force recommendations, as well as re-examining any equity issues not addressed in the recommendations. As the Commission gets deeper into this work, we ask the arts and culture community to hold us accountable. We value our community's voices and want to make it a greater commission for the arts and humanities. You all deserve nothing less. The committee will be making regular reports during our commission meetings. To attend these meetings, please visit our live YouTube page. Our upcoming meetings are, we'll put that in. Please take time to review the task force recommendations. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to reach out to CAHidea@dc.gov. Timeline, November 2nd, special committee meeting for full vote. This is where we are now. November 3rd, press release. Quanise reached out to a few media folks who are interested, just need to talk to them more. So that is where we are. I think I'll first take a motion to approve this and a second, and then we can have discussion, and then we can take it to a vote. So, Quanise, do you want to move?
Yeah, so moved.
Second.
Okay, good. Conversation.
This is Hector Torres. I've joined the meeting and I've been in the meeting for a while.
Great.
I'm out of town, so I just wanted to be part of the count and also be part of the meeting.
Thank you. Thank you. We really appreciate it, Hector.
No problem.
So I think that everyone, no one was not in favor. Everyone is explicitly in favor. One person said, let's read it out loud first. And Hector, we didn't get a chance to get your reaction to this statement.
I agree to let's read it, and I'm in total agreement with the statement.
Great. Any conversation from anyone? If not, I will call the vote. And if you're in favor, aye, and if not, no. Stacy? Cora? Cora?
Yes.
Maggie?
Yes.
Juanice?
Yes.
Natalie?
Yes.
Kimber?
Yeah.
Mariah's not here. Carla?
Yes.
Hector?
Yes.
Gretchen?
Yes.
So we now, after over a year, have an equity statement. Thank you, congratulations. And so we will work to finish it off in the way we talked about, put it on the website, post it, in many places, and pull an excerpt from that to be part of the beginning of all our meetings as we do with the land acknowledgement. Any other comments? Any comments, David, or from the staff on this? Carlos?
No comments from me. I'd like to know if any of the other staff members would like to.
I would like very much to see, Carla, if I can hold you just for a minute. I would like to see if the staff have any, other staff have any comments. Anyone else?
Good evening. Good evening, Reggie. This is Brian Allende. I thought that statement was right on point. Just wondering if that will be part of the agency's overall mission statement. Will it be included, or will it be a derivative, or a portion of that being included in that, as well as the agency's budget chapter? Probably good places.
What do you have a recommendation? Brian? Brian, do you have a recommendation?
Well, I'm sorry, say that.
Do you have a recommendation?
The recommendation was to include that as part of the agency's mission, or in the mission statement, as well as in the budget chapter. I mean, these are things that we're striving towards as an agency, not just with the commission and the task force, correct?
Exactly. I can say that the process we went through to get the bylaws redone and mission statement, that is a process, right? I would suggest instead, we certainly could put it in the budget chapter. And as I said, we should put it on our website, similar to the way we handle the land acknowledgement. It's not, we didn't change the mission statement, but it is something we speak to prominently. So since it's taken so long to get to this point, I hate to have to go through a whole process of changing the mission, unless others feel that we really have to put this in the mission statement. Any views on that? Lauren, what do you think?
I hear what you're saying. Mission statements take a lot of work, but making sure that it's prominent in our work is important. On the website, in the budget chapter, just as a daily acknowledgement of what we're doing here every day. I think it's important.
Good. So Carla, I know you were going to say something.
I was just wondering if it's going to go on the website. We could have the full piece on the website, but maybe there's an abbreviated version so that people at a glance can get a good sense of what it represents.
Yeah, what we talked about was to put the brief version in the website with a link to being able to open the full version.
Okay.
And still get to the full version as well.
Okay.
And Quanice, keep me honest on what we had decided on that front.
Yeah, we're hoping to have a communications campaign around it as well. So that it's not only on that website, but that we're, highlighting and distributing, and then also actually, making sure that we're doing the work. So we have a few meetings coming up with the idea committee and the grants committee meeting that we're really excited to talk through and be able to report back when all of that is done.
Good. So I won't belabor the point. Thank you again to Quanice and the idea committee and others who contributed to us getting to this point. Thank you for being on the call, everybody, and for the vote. So we will move ahead with that. The second agenda item was consideration of the letter of support for the capital repairs and employment for art talent to improve visibility everywhere, which is a CREATIVE Act. And I'm going to read some background on this before we read it and go into the full discussion. So recently, Congresswoman Susan Bonici from Oregon introduced legislation to help arts organizations, local arts agencies, and museums expand their reach and improve facilities. The CREATIVE Act, HR 1975, would direct the NEA to award multi-year grants of up to $5 million to nonprofit organizations for the purposes of building new facilities, improving existing facilities, hiring staff, and producing art, with a particular focus on community input and reaching underserved communities. The bill has been endorsed by Americans for the Arts, AFTA, grant makers in the arts, the National Association for Music Education, and the American Alliance of Museums, among others, at the local, state, and national level. AFTA has reached out to see if our commission would consider issuing a formal letter in support of the bill to Congress. And BEGA has confirmed that we would be allowed to provide such a letter if we choose. So the House is currently in recess until November 14th. However, once the House comes back to DC, there are only about 4 in-session weeks scheduled before the end of the current Congress, the 117th Congress, and the beginning of the new one on January 3rd. Any proposed legislation that has not been enacted by the end of the Congress effectively dies and would have to be reintroduced in the next Congress. So we were wanting to get this letter of support in before November 14th, and so the timing sort of worked out for us. The letter that was sent around to you all, the draft, which I will read, it's much shorter than our equity statement, so it won't take as long, has been sent to the mayor's office and has been approved by the mayor's office. And we didn't have to necessarily get explicit approval because we are an independent agency, but we thought just to be safe, we should get it approved. It was approved by the mayor's office. And Vega said earlier, if the mayor's office approved it, then we're fine. So I think we are fine to proceed with this if we wish. So I will now read the letter. Could you put it up, Patrick? Good. You see who it's addressed to. Dear Chairman Scott and Ranking Member Fox. We, the members of the District of Columbia Commission on the Arts and Humanities, write in regard to the capital repairs and employment for art talent to improve visibility everywhere, CREATIVE, Act of 2022, HR 9175, which has been referred to the Committee on Education and Labor. As a state arts agency partner of the National Endowment for the Arts, we urge you to advance this bill as soon as possible in the remaining weeks of the 117th Congress. As you and your colleagues undoubtedly know, the arts and culture industries have been tremendously impacted by the pandemic as some of the hardest hit in the American economy. Even now, as other sectors are regaining their financial footing, the recovery of the arts and culture sector has been slow and oftentimes uneven and inequitable. Here, both in the nation's capital and across the country, the pandemic laid bare the roots of structural and systemic racism, elitism, and nepotism that have plagued and hindered our arts organization for decades. The CREATIVE Act, with its emphasis on community input and reaching underserved communities, provides a welcome approach to correcting those faults. Since the beginning of the pandemic, it was understood that the arts and culture sector would be among the last to fully recover. By establishing grants with funding available for 3 and 5 years, the CREATIVE Act will help ensure a stable recovery of the arts and culture sector and allow arts organizations the capacity to plan and grow both thoughtfully and strategically. For many arts organizations, particularly those in underserved communities, this represents an opportunity to not only survive, but to thrive. The impacts and benefits that the CREATIVE Act can potentially bring to diverse communities across America extends far beyond the walls of the theaters and museums in those communities. This bill will create jobs, promote economic growth, and enrich the lives of all Americans. We encourage you and your colleagues to swiftly consider and approve this bill. Sincerely, District of Columbia Commission on Arts and Humanities. So it's interesting that both our equity statement and this are being discussed in the same meeting, but they are certainly one and the same. Reactions, questions, comments from anyone?
Well, yeah, I have something to say. Hallelujah. They sound like they've been in our meetings.
Exactly.
And I'm
That's
excited.
why, that's why when I saw it, I didn't see how we couldn't support it, but I don't have the power on my own. We had to bring it to the full commission, get it approved by the mayor's office. But I'm exactly with you, Cora. Hallelujah, really.
I was concerned that I didn't know a lot about it. I just didn't want more money coming in to go to inequitable situations, but they've been very clear what communities we're supposed to use this money for. So I feel real good about it.
Good.
Yeah,
You about to say something? Oh, I'm sorry, Hector.
Yeah, I'm really glad that Jeff also kind of dug deep into it to find out some of the details of this legislation, presenting some clarity that I was able to read. And I just want to say thank you to him because I think it helped us all kind of clarify and be more engaged and supportive of this letter. So I fully endorse it and I agree. And I think it's a great movement forward.
Other comments, reactions? Hearing none, I will take a motion.
Reggie,
sorry,
just a
yes.
quick fact check. I think, did we say it's the hardest hit sector in the letter? It's just factually incorrect. I don't know if you want to change it or is it among?
It says, impacted by the pandemic as some of the hardest hit in the
Sum
American.
up. Okay. I thought it said the.
Now, it says arts and culture industries have been tremendously impacted by the pandemic as some of the hardest hit in the American economy.
Okay.
Then it goes on to say, even now, as other sectors are regaining their financial footing, the recovery of the arts and culture sector has been slow and oftentimes uneven and inequitable. But we want to be accurate, so that's good. Other reactions? If not, I'll take a motion to approve this letter to be sent.
So moved.
Second,
Second,
I will now go through the vote. Aye if you agree, and nay if not. Stacy, Cora,
Yes.
Maggie,
Yes.
Juanice,
Yep.
Natalie,
Yes.
Kimber,
Yes.
Mariah's not here. Carla,
Yes.
Hector,
yes.
Gretchen.
Yes.
Good, thank you. It passes, and we will send it on. So, thank you all for your time. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.